When it comes to our next fight at lightweight, well, we've been living most of our lives living in a striker's paradise. We have Drew Dober taking on Brad Quake Riddell. And for the guy representing New Zealand, the former striking coach at Tiger Muay Thai, the man representing City Kickboxing, Brad Riddell's had a really interesting UFC tenure. And if we look at it so far, he has one loss from years past, but big wins in the UFC, albeit 3 against Jamie Mullarkey, Magomed Mustafayev, if you thought that he won, and Lecco Alexis Silva, a guy that Michael Bisping once touted as a very good prospect in the lightweight division. For Brad Riddell, he was supposed to have a coming out party of sorts just this past spring. It was supposed to be the co-main event to Brunson and Kevin Holland. Yikes. But he was originally supposed to be taking on Gregor Gillespie. There were COVID issues, his camp, the Volkanovski camp, all over. And yeah, that fight ended up falling through. For Drew Dober, he took a fight not that long ago. It was on relative short notice against Islam Makhachev. And Islam gonna Islam, and he absolutely dominated that one. But before that, Drew Dober had 2 really important wins against good strikers. And one of them, a little bit more classically trained boxer, Nazar Hakparas, finished him in impressive fashion. Nobody probably thought that was going to happen other than Factory X and Drew himself. And then he picked up a big win over Alexander Hernandez. So again, little blip in the radar against Makhachev, a borderline, if not ranked guy. And could he beat guys in the top 10, top 5? I don't know, but a lot of people seem to think he could. For Brad Riddell, unproven commodity, but you know exactly what his striking is, and if his takedown defense is on point, he could really go on a run. We're going to find that out in this fight here. I absolutely love it.
Oh, this easily could have been Fight of the Night, or on our Fight of the Night screen at the start of the show, without a doubt, because with Brad Riddell, you kind of know what you're going to get, but he is adding new wrinkles to his game, because he is only 9-1, and then you look at it, he's barely been fighting MMA for very long. Like, he is adding all the grappling now. Like, with Brad Riddell, it's interesting because it's not often that you have fighters come over, and of course, we're going to reference the main event too, but who have so much experience, it's just not in MMA. His experience really stems from kickboxing, and you can see that when Brad Riddell's in there, I always talk about this, when guys go to their basic instincts, oh, I'm hurt, what am I going to do? Am I going to try to run? Am I going to try to wrestle? Brad Riddell's going to get really technically sound and throw smart overhands, because Brad Riddell can get brought into a war, don't get me wrong, but even his version of like a war version of a fight, a brawl if you will, he's still fairly technical, and that's why this fight against Drew Dober should be so fun, because the guys who Drew Dober struggles with are the grapplers. Brad Riddell's not shooting a takedown on Drew Dober. I can almost guarantee you that throughout this fight. The one thing that I do wonder though is, how's Drew Dober going to deal with the speed advantage that Brad Riddell has in this fight, because I do think Drew Dober has decent punching power for this weight class. I think he's got decent hand speed too. Brad Riddell's got really, really good hand speed and technique, and that's the one area of it where I think Drew Dober's going to have a little bit of trouble. I think if Drew Dober can force Brad Riddell to move backwards, he's going to have some success of his own, but that really is kind of the weird X factor for this fight. Who is the one moving forward? Because if Brad Riddell's moving forward, throwing combinations, throwing leg kicks, there's not too many people who weigh 155 pounds who are going to be able to beat that guy. But on the other hand, if Drew Dober's the one moving forward, and if he is able to catch Brad Riddell with even one decent shot, I do think Drew Dober has enough of a ground game that if he's going to be able to get on top of Brad Riddell, listen, I'm not here to tell you Drew Dober's going to bring out the wrestling shoes, look like Daniel Cormier and start shooting single legs, but I do think that if anyone's shooting a takedown in this fight, it is going to be the more well-rounded fighter in Drew Dober, but I could not be more excited for this fight at lightweight.
And for Drew Dober, we haven't really seen that. Again, he's been content to strike with strikers, and against the wrestler, it was kind of like, whoop, and now I'm down against Makhachev. But in a fight like this, totally different. 2 primary strikers, you have the southpaw in Dober, and really, fight IQ comes into play, and who knows how good their fight IQ is until we actually see the fight. So when I do look at the odds for this one, you have Dober the favorite, open to -140 or thereabouts. He's still roughly there. Brad Riddell open about a +120. He's about a +110 now. The odds are kind of getting a little bit closer to par. The Tapology votes are not all that close. 985 of them so far. 67% Dober, 51% have him to win by decision, 41% by knockout. For the 33% that have Riddell, it's 78% by decision. Does any of that surprise you?
A little bit, because Drew Dober is the more proven commodity of the two. And I know we talk about experience a lot and how much of an X factor that is. I honestly think this is a fight where experience isn't going to play that much of a factor, because for Drew Dober, he's fighting a guy who does everything he does. Like, Drew Dober's not going to have to really retool his whole game and his whole camp to fight someone who's stylistically much different than himself. Drew Dober knows, okay, I'm a striker, he's a striker, I can just work on my striking this camp. And with that confidence, I do think we're going to see Drew Dober open up with his striking a little bit more than we have seen him in his past fights. But with all that being said, I think Brad Riddell has a really, really good chin, and I think he's got the striking to go in there and beat a guy like Drew Dober. Brad Riddell also doesn't have to worry about the takedown, and I think that's going to be the most dangerous version of Brad Riddell. So at the end of the day, I do have picked Brad Riddell.
I mean, we'll see what Drew Dober comes in with, because again, like we said, if you're looking at overall, Hernandez took him down. When was the last time Drew Dober was successful with a takedown? Against John Tuck back in August of 2018. Bellator's John Tuck. So it is a really tricky one. We'll see what game plan both guys come out with. But again, maybe you want to take like the under, not the fight not to go the distance, because both guys have the tools to get it done. I will ever so slightly edge Brad Riddell as well. I can't believe I'm even saying that, because again, I normally go with experience, but when I look at it, if we're talking strike IQ, I don't think the southpaw aspect's really going to throw Brad Riddell for all that big of a loop. And if we're going to strike, I mean, we saw him get a win over Magomed Mustafayev, who, listen, the guy's got to fight more, but I love his game. So, ever so slightly going with Brad Riddell from me. You got New Zealand's own as well?
I do. I just think he's the slightly cleaner fighter technique-wise, and I do think that's what this fight's going to come down to.
All right, Matt, we're both going with New Zealand's own Brad Riddell to get the win. You're not going to want to miss the rest of our predictions and previews for this card. We got a lot of them, so check them out in the playlist. We got a lot of great stuff coming out at the end of the week as well. You're not going to want to miss, so keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. As we always say, let's get into it.